What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land, and today we are ranking every single Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door boss from the remake on Nintendo Switch. And we are ranking every single boss from worst to best. Now, how do we decide something like this? Well, a lot of factors go into it, including the boss music, the theme and atmosphere of the background, how the boss actually works, some of its mechanics and attacks, and just what makes it unique and stand out, maybe even some of its story elements. So, a lot goes into each one of these picks. And of course, this is my opinion, so feel free to disagree, but let me know why you disagree calmly in the comments down below, because everybody's list, I'm sure, is completely different from one another. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and if you enjoy this video, let me know, because I will do another ranking where I rank every single boss from easiest to hardest, but you gotta show this one love first by leaving a like, subscribing, and dropping a comment down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's jump into the list of the top 27 bosses in Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door Remake ranked. Starting off the list and coming in at number 27, we have Lord Crump. Lord Crump is really the first boss battle in the entire game, and I'm talking about the first encounter at Rogueport, as soon as you start the game and meet up with Goombella, your first partner. It's meant to be a tutorial and kind of show you how to dodge and also how to attack, but that's really about it. There's not much to it, and you hit him a couple times, dodge a couple times, and it's over. It's meant to be this easy, it's probably meant to be this bad as well. It's just simple. Next up we have Red Bones, and they don't really have any unique gimmick. They can throw bones at you from afar, which is pretty easy to dodge and easy to see coming as well, and all you need to use is Koops' Power Shell in order to blast through all of them, and it's a pretty quick fight overall. I guess the only real thing that makes it unique is the fact that Mario technically has to use a hammer attack by this time in the game, but besides this, there's not much going on. And yeah, he can technically rebuild other enemies such as more Dry Bones in order to fight with him, but besides this, he's a very simple foe. And Dark Bones is literally the same exact boss battle. The only difference here is that he's a lot stronger, and he has more health and defense, making him a little bit more difficult, which in turn I guess makes it a little bit more interesting than the very first version, which was the Red Bones, but overall, still the same moves and attacks and everything, just a very basic boss battle all around, and meant to be a simple mini-boss. Next up we have the Gold Fuzzy and the Fuzzy Horde. The reason why this one's also very low is considering the fact of how slow they attack. The Fuzzies attack by jumping on you, latching on, and slowly sucking the life force out of you. Well, the problem with this is it's just slow, and when there's a lot of them on screen, you have to slowly endure tons of this slow motion attacks, and it's not really that difficult to attack even though it's an off-balanced attack. It's not hard to dodge, and the Fuzzy Horde is more just a visual thing because they don't really do anything. You can just completely ignore them and take out Gold Fuzzy, and every other one will just bounce away. So it's not like they actually add a whole lot to the boss fight itself, and overall it was still a very basic boss fight. Next up we have the Armored Harriers, or known as the Iron Adonis Twins. Now what makes these so unique is the whole aspect of how they work. You go in to battle them, and if you've never played this game before, you'd be very confused as none of your attacks are working. They're just too powerful, and you'll actually have to lose or at least leave the match until eventually you get a partner that can actually handle them, and that is your baby Yoshi, in my case, my little boy Spike. Now, what makes this so weak though compared to other boss battles is all it takes is Spike's gulp ability in order to defeat these guys. It's one move, and only one move can actually work, so you're just rinse and repeating the same move like 2 or 3 times, and then the battle is over. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty basic. Next up we have the King of the Koopas himself, Bowser. Now this was actually a big surprise, as you're in the middle of a battle and Bowser just jumps into the stage in order to fight you at the Glitz Pit, and it's just kind of out of nowhere and completely unexpected, and it's a fun boss fight. It's overall very basic with what Bowser can do. He breathes fire and he jumps on you. It's stuff that you remember, but what makes this so interesting is the fact that you're already probably very low in health from the battle before this one, so you gotta kind of work with what you got. With your low flower power and health, you gotta still try to take Bowser out by trying to slip some items in when you can as well, and I feel like this kind of hassle last second battle was pretty interesting for them to throw in, and he has a decent chunk of health to be battling him this part of the game, which made this a pretty interesting boss battle. Next up we have Atomic Boo, and this one is a strange one how you can fight it. I mean, I think technically it's even an optional boss. If you don't swing all the boos away, then you won't even see this thing, but you swing some boos away and then boom, they'll combine into Atomic Boo. Now I know a lot of people actually find this boss to be entertaining, but I just never found anything very interesting about this boss, even from the original game. It's just not that exciting. It's a whole bunch of boos into one big boo, and that's all they kind of fight like, one big boo. The only real attack that he has is he sends these little swarms of little boos around you, and you can just do a quick dodge, and there's not really anything too difficult or too crazy about this boss fight, and there's no real mechanic that changes how this boss fight works. I think this would have been really cool if it worked like Huff and Puff from Paper Mario 64, where little clouds would pop out of him and you'd have to take out the individual clouds, and kind of like Big Boo or Boo Losses from Luigi's Mansion worked the same way, where you would attack him, little boos would pop out, and you had to take out the little boos in order to deal the actual damage. But this one's just jumping on Big Boo and then he's done before you know it. Next up, we have Blooper. This is a very early boss battle in this game, and the reason why I actually like this one is because it actually introduces a mechanic that teaches you don't always just attack the boss. Sometimes you have to attack things around the boss to make the weak points appear, and you actually have to take out his Blooper tentacles in order to drop him down to the ground, allowing you to do some bigger, grander attacks on him. And that's what I really like about this, is it shows you there's other ways around boss battles, and this is one of the only first opening boss battles that actually had something like this, so I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. I'm not gonna lie, for this being an early boss, you don't have a lot of health and a lot of power yet, let alone a lot of defense. So this is actually going to be somewhat of a challenging fight for new players, and I could see this kind of giving some people a run for their money since it's such a bigger boss for such early point in the game. Like, I actually enjoyed this one. Magnus von Grapple is the first major boss on this list, and it's easily the weakest of the bunch. It's just not that entertaining. With Lord Crump piloting a giant mech, you would expect some more intensity with this boss battle, and maybe some more grander attacks, but all Lord Crump does with the robot is step on you, or jump up and down, or shoot his hands out just for them to be destroyed very easily right after it. There's not much to this robot fight besides some really cool music, but overall you'll probably beat this really quickly. Of course, this also goes for the Magnus 2.0 coming in right behind it. The only difference here is that the robot is a little stronger and has a brand new attack where it can suck up the audience and actually spit it at you. That attack is actually really fun to watch, and it's really goofy, and I love it, but besides that, there's nothing new here. It's still the same attacks, maybe with an extra one of him drilling from the ceiling, which is pretty devastating, but I don't know, this late in the game I was really expecting something crazy, or like a crazy new contraption that he would build, not the same exact thing again. And even the little hands that float outside of him are pretty much the same exact thing, even though they have spikes on them, which I can't understand what's the purpose of the spikes hanging off the side of a flying object. It's not like anyone can run into them or really hurt themselves. It's kind of strange. It's not really a well thought out machine, and I get that's the whole point, but still, I kind of wish this was more of a fight. I know a lot of people aren't going to understand this one, but for me, I really thought Gus was a lot better than some of the fights in this game. Gus is technically the second mini-boss that you'll come into in this game, and really the second boss period, and it's one that you're not necessarily meant to win. You can actually lose and it will continue with the story, but yeah, you can actually defeat him too if you play your cards right, which also probably means hitting lots of super guards and also having items on deck, because you're probably not prepared at this point. So thankfully I had some items and was ready to go with this fight, and it's actually a really big challenge for the start of the game. And I like how it's an optional fight too. You don't have to do this fight, and it's also really cool how you can actually kind of push yourself to win this. Like, there's a potential to win something that's maybe not even meant to be won in the first place. This was a really cool boss fight. He's very powerful, and his attacks can be hard to dodge and even super guard if you're not careful, so I definitely recommend trying to beat this boss if it's your beginning of the playthrough as hard as you can. Stock up on some items, give it a try. I thought it was a fun little opener. Sir Grotus is the second to last boss fight in this game, so naturally you probably would expect it to be higher, and on a lot of people's list it probably is, but I was expecting something more grand when I was little and I was first playing this game, and it was pretty underwhelming. With him being the leader of this alien gang, being the X-Nauts, I really expected him to pack more of a punch. He has some status effects that he can use with his wand, including shooting lightning down from the sky, but overall he'll spend most of his time just throwing up defense. I mean, he'll even use multiple turns throwing up defense, which is his little orbs that he'll spin around him in order to have a shield. And all you have to do is get rid of these orbs in order to attack him. And he doesn't even have that much health. He has 50 HP, which means if you could just have Flurry out and blow away these orbs every single time, you can power up Mario and just have him deal boatloads of damage. And that's really the whole battle, is just having Mario attack while your partner takes out the little orbs. Yeah, it wasn't as grand as I really was hoping for. Next up, we have the first encounter with the Shadow Sirens, and this one was pretty interesting because one of these characters, spoiler alert, is going to be your partner later on, and you get to see how all of them fight together as sisters, as they all have very different attributes, which I love. Vivian has the ability to obviously use fire effects, where Miriam actually has the ability to just be extremely powerful, where lots of the time her sisters will power her up just to deal lots of damage, and she can even use lightning attacks, where Beldam uses ice and she's able to use lots of status effects to make her stronger, to make her defense higher, and to even affect the rest of the sisters, which is pretty cool. And they all work in tandem as one giant unit with different status effects and tons of different attacks. And I actually found this group to be a fun boss battle. Entering the 1,000-year door and going deep beneath the ground, you'll find Hooktail's older brother Gloomtail, and this is essentially the same exact boss fight. But of course Gloomtail is a little stronger and also now breathes poison, which can leave you affected. Now, just because this is a little bit more difficult, I don't think it's better than Hooktail's version whatsoever, because it lacks some of that personality, where Gloomtail doesn't really speak that much during the battle, and also doesn't have some type of crazy ending the way Hooktail's boss battle did. So it's still good, but a little bit lacking. Next up, we have Bonetail, which actually might be the oldest of the three, maybe the older sister of both the Gloomtail and Hooktail. It's not really quite said, but Bonetail is the final boss at the end of the Pit of 100 Trials. And what makes this one interesting is that you have to go through 99 other floors of really difficult enemies in order to defeat Bonetail, and you don't get a health refill at all. It's all up to your items and stuff that you brought into there yourself, and if you lose, at least in the original game, you have to go all the way back to the first floor, which let me tell you, that journey can be around an hour to 2 hours long depending on how long you spend on each little individual battle. But Bonetail is very, very powerful and has tons of health. I think the most health in the entire game if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it is a true battle. Bonetail also has the ability to breathe ice, which can be detrimental because if she freezes you, you can't move for a couple of turns and she will wail on you. But the main problem with this boss is, once again, it's the same attacks as the brother and sister, where she'll use her paw and also an occasional snip at you with breathing ice instead of fire or poison. It's just rinse and repeat, and there's no really cool aspect with it. Like, there's not a lot of mid-game dialogue or any type of post thing that happens of her eating the crowd or anything like that, which does make it fall a little short. Another one that I would always see online that people love is Macho Grubba, and I could never really get behind him, and I don't quite understand the hype around him all that much. It's still a really, really cool chapter with a great story, and the whole character arc with this character is awesome. But as far as the battle goes himself, I mean, he really hypes himself up being the ultimate fighter back in the day, and how he used to have illegal moves, and he even tells you that he's going to use some illegal moves on you, and I don't ever really see anything that looks illegal. I mean, he uses some abilities to kind of make himself shifty, which is harder to hit him, but overall it's just some basic attacks. It's not like he's doing something like dropping the stage on you or sneaking into the crowd or doing anything that really feels illegal. And the entire time I feel like most of the time he's just spending, just hyping himself up and raising his stats, whether it be his offense, his defense, or both. It just feels like he does it way too often, where he's actually like missing opportunities to attack me, where I'm like, okay, keep raising all that stuff, I'm gonna absolutely destroy you when it's my turn to hit you. But overall, it's still a fun boss battle and deserves to be right around the middle of this list, but I still was hoping for a little bit more from this boss. Bowser's boss battles really just keep consisting of him dropping in unexpected, and I still really love that aspect of these boss battles, especially after you get done fighting Grotus and a couple of bosses just before that. You get right into a boss battle with Bowser right away, and you're probably very weak at this point. Once again, very similar to the first time you fight him in this game, all the way in Glitzville. And this is still a really cool aspect, where the game puts your back against the wall and sees how you deal with it. In the original game, yeah, you didn't even get to restart from this point if you died. You had to restart from the beginning with Grotus again, which made this even more interesting. Now, thankfully, I got lucky and they both got frozen thanks to stage hazards, but yeah, I still love this boss battle. It makes you prioritize who to take down first, obviously being Cammy because she can heal Bowser and also give him different status effects. And I love how it's this kind of 2v2 impromptu duel at the very end of the game, and it really feels like a great moment to take out Bowser. I just wish Bowser actually hit a lot harder with it being the end of the game and such. Hooktail was an amazing boss to start the game with, the very first major boss of the game, as it's this giant dragon in a giant tower terrorizing the townsfolk down below, and you have to finally put an end to this, and I love this. I love how she chats with you the entire battle and just keeps it entertaining the entire fight as she's breathing fire or smacking you with her paw, and you can even choose which one to attack. Not to mention, she has a really cool weakness if you found it in the castle, which is the sound of frogs, which has changed from crickets from the original North American version. I absolutely love this boss battle, including the end, which just completely took me by surprise when I was little, and we really didn't see anything quite to this degree the rest of the entire game. For instance, her trying to bargain her way into letting you let her live by trying to give you coins and different foods and even saying to smell her feet, until eventually she just gobbles up the crowd and the battle moves into the back side of the chairs. And it's just like, what? I can't believe nothing like this happened again the entirety of the game, and it really is just sad we didn't see anything break the fourth wall quite like this boss battle did. This was a great opening to the game. In Chapter 6, you meet up with Lord Crump again, and this time you're having a duel out at sea, which is a really cool feeling battle. You're just coming off of a boss battle of the main chapter, and you end up teaming up with that boss in order to fight this one, and it feels really cool. I love the ocean scenery and the kind of pirate ship sails in the background, and it just is a really cool feeling boss battle. And this time, Lord Crump actually uses his X-Not buddies in order to help him fight, by sticking a stack in front of him as a shield, or even rolling across the stage on them as a giant ball, or having them dangle from the ceiling and drop things on Mario and his partner. I just feel like there's a lot of variety here, and I love that he's actually using his X-Not army in order to help him fight, and it just makes sense. This was probably one of the best outings we've seen of Lord Crump in the entire game. I just love the personality that this battle has, and the never-ending spirit that Lord Crump gives off by running behind the curtain and healing up at times. It's just a really well-rounded boss battle. Next up, you have the new Shadow Sirens, which actually has Vivian on your team, and she's replaced with Dupless, the Chapter 4 boss, on their team. So it kind of makes this both a mini-boss and a real boss all fighting together. It's very interesting. And this is definitely interesting because the fact that Dupless can actually transform into one of your partners or into you, which actually makes this a pretty well-rounded team, with Miriam's extreme attacks and also her large amount of health, and of course, Beldam's status effects, such as using ice, making her power up or defense up, or even giving her an extra turn, can really be detrimental to your team, and still a lot of fun to fight towards the end of the game. Wacka is a secret boss in this game, and one that truly drove me mad trying to find. So there's some criteria first. For one, you have to hit him on his head until he stops respawning on Key Hall Key. Then you have to complete the Pit of 100 Trials the first time while defeating Bonetail and returning. Then you should be able to fight him, right? Well, no, there's even more to it. You have to apparently wait for a specific email. So I went into the pit a second time, completed it, and nothing was there. As soon as I exited the pipe, they shot me the email. Absolutely unbelievably stupid. So right now I'm pretty upset that I had to go through the pit a third time, but finally getting back here, thankfully he was here waiting for me. So how does Wacka actually work? Well, every time you attack him, he drops a Wacka bump on the ground, where he can actually eat it for health, and he can even throw them at you for extreme damage, where the red ones can do some nasty work to you. Well, how do you even dodge these things? Because dodging still does a lot of damage, which means you're going to have to rely on super guards. But also, you can't just keep attacking it with multiple hit attacks, because the more you actually attack it, the more bumps that drops out, which makes it even more difficult for you. So you want to hit him with some massive damaged attacks that are very little attacking, meaning 1 or 2 hits for massive damage. So you're probably going to want to power up with your crystal stars and then just wail on him one of your basic attacks, which only do 1 or 2 damage. You'll probably want to use your hammer here, but unfortunately I didn't have it because I have a badge that actually gives me more attack power but takes away my hammer. No, you can't blow the bumps away. I tried. But this boss battle was pretty creative, and I enjoyed it how it had a different approach on how boss design could be with a new version of this Paper Mario classic style that we love. And I love this. I would love to see boss battles have more variety like this in the future, and I think this is just Nintendo really being great again. I love the Smorg boss battle just because it's so weird and creepy. It's this giant creature made out of little fuzzy creatures to make this really weird contraption that's actually holding the passengers of the XS Express in its tentacles. It has a really cool mechanic where you have to take out its tentacles and hurry up and damage the red core because the tentacles will respawn, hiding the core away. So yeah, you have to be quick with how you handle this because each tentacle can deal some pretty hefty damage too, as there's 3 of them at start. After you deal some pretty hefty damage to the core, you'll then see it transform into a brand new phase where it will turn into like this giant creepy scorpion thing, where you'll definitely want to get rid of the claw because it can do some massive amounts of damage. Now I'm going to be honest with you, this boss battle very well could have been my favorite in the entire game if it just had a couple more transformations. I love the different phases of boss battles and I really wish there were more here, as this easily could have made top 2. This was a really good boss battle. Here's another fan favorite with Rock the Hawk, coming in at number 5. Rock the Hawk is just awesome, let's face it. He's an awesome character that's cocky with a huge ego, and he's just wanting to completely stomp everybody that joins the ring with him, especially Gonzalez, which is Mario in case you haven't gotten here. Rock the Hawk uses some pretty unique and funny looking attacks to fight you, like sliding across the stage or flying through the air to hit you with a flying chest bump thing, and he definitely lives up to the hype as the champion of the Glitz Pit, and he's just really fun to fight. He kind of messes with the entire arena, kind of flying to the ceiling and even grabbing the ceiling in order to shake it to bring stuff down, and you have to use a very specific attack in order to bring him down with the only character that you can, which is Madame Flurry, which I love stuff like this. Only specific partners can take down a certain boss, and you can knock him to the ground in order to finish him. This is the way to have only specific abilities functional without having some type of weird collectible that you have to find, like Sticker Star and even Color Splash. This time, your partner is going to be with you. All you need to do is to know which attack to use. The only problem with it is it prevents you from even using any other attacks from any other characters because it just says, nope, this won't work. I wish it just let you kind of do it and see, nope, that didn't work, nope, that didn't work, and kind of punish you for trying something that doesn't work. Technically, there are moves that probably would hit him, like the Quake Hammer and the Hammer Toss, but it's fun to use one of your partner abilities. And this is what made this boss battle so fun, the atmosphere, everything. It felt like a championship bout on stage, especially after you were getting screwed over by the commissioner in secret, which you'll find out later on. This was just a great, beautiful chapter. Coming in at number 4, we have Dupless, which is without a doubt a fan favorite because it's Dupless. It's the goofy ghost character that actually is able to have a really amazing technique of copying your character and your partner characters as well, which makes him so unique. But the first time you battle him, you believe it's so simple and easy, but it has one of the craziest twists for a boss battle ever. After dealing your damage, you find out that technically you were the bad guy after getting completely copied, and you're the one now laying on the ground dead at the end, and Dupless actually has your identity and your partners now, and you're just kind of laying there and realizing, wait a second, that's me. That's me on the ground, and you have to chase him the whole story, getting your identity back until you fight him again. And it's just the story around this is what makes this boss battle so good as well. After partnering up with Vivian and she finds out that you're Mario, she actually runs away before the battle starts, leaving you 1v2, kind of hopeless on your own, until she eventually comes to her senses and comes back to help you, which is a great character arc. And I just love how the whole story blends so seamlessly into the boss battle, where there's dialogue in between the battle, everything feels so surreal, and it's just an amazing feeling end of the chapter. And you can also choose to take out all your partners one by one if you want, or just to take out Dupless to end this thing. And I love that variety. And I also love the fact that dodging these attacks comes down to how well you remember your own attacks with your own partners that you had, and you had to correspondingly dodge those same attacks that you've been dishing out on other enemies the first 3 chapters of this game. It's so cool, and it really just comes full circle. I love this boss battle. Coming in at number 3, we have Cortez the Pirate King. This one was really shocking as a kid, because I remember looking at this saying, come on, fighting a skull head, this is gonna be so lame, and then boom, whoa, wow, what? Yeah, he has this giant bony spine now with 4 arms and different blades and swords in each hand. It is the scariest looking thing ever, and thankfully it's more scary than it is actually dangerous, because this boss battle isn't that difficult, and it's very easy to telegraph their attacks and dodge them when they're coming. But you can't lie, this is one of the coolest looking bosses in the entire game, not to mention one of the best boss themes ever. besides the pure scale and awesomeness of the soundtrack and the way the boss looks, he's actually fun to fight too, because he has 3 different phases. His second phase, he'll drop all the swords, close the curtain, and come back as this giant dinosaur-looking creepy skeletal figure, and it's just so cool. And you have to find a way in order to open up his chest piece and take out the crystal heart in order to break him down again to a third phase, where he'll actually come back as just the floating head this time, but his weapons are floating as well, and they each have different properties when they attack, including one that can just straight up poison you. Yeah, that's a rusty hook right there. Yes, Mario can actually technically get tetanus in the Mario universe, but also what's really cool is you can just blow all these weapons away with Madame Flurry's Gale, where you can just pretty much get rid of all of them with one attack. It's a really cool thing to figure out and find on your own when you do, like, oh my gosh, that worked. And then taking out its head solo is a great way to finish the battle off. This is a really amazing boss battle. I love Cortez. Coming in at number 2, we have the Shadow Queen. What? You telling me she's not at number 1? Nope, not in this game, at least not in the remake, because Shadow Queen does slightly get beaten out by an extra boss battle, and you probably know what it is if you 100%ed the game already. But Shadow Queen is a perfect ending to a really beautiful, amazing game. I love the Shadow Queen boss battle. It first starts off with a pretty calm battle against a possessed Peach, and then she gets pretty ticked off at you, and pretty much unleashes her full spirit form, where you can't deal a single ounce of damage, and you really just kind of have to stay alive for as long as you can, as she starts dishing out some crazy attacks. Really, for one of the first times in the game, you have to just straight up play really good defense, and know the right times to dodge and maybe even super guard in certain situations, because if not, you're going to get taken out. And she pretty much has 3 attacks in a row with both of her hands and herself. This is a pretty difficult boss battle. Not to mention, she can pull a straight up hook tail and rip the crowd away with her creepy shadow hands and max out her health. Of course, then after the power of crystal stars and the power of hoping from Mario's friends, Mario's able to break the curse that makes her invincible, and the real battle begins. You'll be spending a lot of time taking out her hands and trying to dish out as much damage as you can to the actual queen herself. But you'll also want to know when to get out of the way completely by using Vivian's Veil, because she will send out massive shock waves that will deal tons of damage when she powers up. This boss battle beautifully ties in story elements and is an amazingly fun end of the game final boss battle that has difficulty, that has the spectacle, and it definitely has the music. This definitely feels like the end of the game and is a for sure top 3 from pretty much almost anyone's pick if you ask them. So what in the world could be number 1 and beat out the Shadow Queen, the final boss of this game? Well, that will be the classic legendary fighter of Prince Mush. Yep, you can actually fight Prince Mush in the remake of Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door if you go back to the Glitz Pit. All you have to do is click Exhibition Match on one of the Game Boy terminals, and you can choose a battle against him. Let me tell you, he is a threat, and easily the hardest boss battle in the entire game. And he has such a unique way about him. I fell in love with this boss battle, and it was one of the few in the entire game where I just cracked a smile after I completed it. Now, I only died to him once, but it is the only time in the entire game from start to finish on a 100% completion that I ever failed. Like, I literally ever seen the end screen. Prince Mush's gimmick is that he's extremely powerful and he knows how to dodge certain attacks. If he's jumping up and down, you'll want to use an attack that comes from the air like Mario's jump. But if he's moving side from side, you actually want to use a sweeping attack like Mario's hammer or something else from another partner that hits from the side. And even on top of that, there's still attacks that he can just straight up block. For instance, Yoshi's Gulp, which is one of the best in the entire game, can't even be used here. And when his back is against the wall and is about to lose, he literally turns into like Goku Toad and starts supercharging into Super Saiyan mode, which means if he lands an attack on you, you are done. Yeah, no, I wasn't kidding. It makes it even worse, he's such a good sport about it too. He's like, oh, that was a good battle. Let's do it again sometime, Mario, as he just kicked your butt. And it's just like, yeah, there's no kind of trickeries with his attacks or anything like that. He's just an all-around good fighter. And That's what's also so cool about this fight, is that he has like this massive respect for Mario, but he just wants to fight and train and beat him as well. I love that. Back to his Super Saiyan mode at the end of the fight, you can't even really attack him because most of your attacks will just be blocked. I mean, pretty much every attack will be blocked and you won't really do any damage to him besides maybe 1 or 2 damage. So how do you actually defeat him? Well, you just have to sit and wait for him to attack and actually counter. Yes, you have to hit a super guard on one of his attacks to bring him down. That's the only way you can deal damage to him. So yeah, as you can see, this is a difficult boss battle. This was so satisfying to complete, I just wanted to keep stomping him even when I didn't need to. This is a boss battle, baby, and I love this extra boss battle added to the remake, and to me was my favorite boss battle in the entire game by far. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. That is every single boss battle in Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door Remake ranked from worst to best. Let me know your list down below and if you agree or disagree with some of my picks, and thank you so much for tuning in. But make sure you leave a like and subscribe and even comment and share this video if you guys want to see another ranking from the bosses being easiest to hardest. You could probably guess what the hardest will be. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.